Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. We had begun the literal translation and idiomatic translation of the section of verses from 105 to 129. So we had completed until verse 117. So we will begin our literal and idiomatic translation exercise. I call it an exercise because, as I said, that this is something that is meant to bring you closer to the text of the Quran. It brings you closer to the words of the Quran, also makes you realize that how these words they change forms and shapes in the Arabic language, but they are so closely related that the same shape will give you a very similar meaning with the change of form. So if you get used to these words, if you get used to how these words are written and how they are translated, then this is a means to, as I said, educate you in understanding the Quran without even knowing the Arabic language. And I have also discussed this earlier with you that this is basically a methodology that was adopted about 2.5, 3 centuries ago by Shah Waliullah, the famous polymath scholar of the subcontinent, and his family is credited with this approach, and it is still in vogue in many parts of the subcontinent. And I find it to be very inspiring, and I also find it to be very useful. And that is why I think that if you are all able to concentrate and focus and give more time to this form of study, it will be very beneficial for your understanding of the Quran. So we begin with the text that is remaining, and that is Ya ayyuhal lazina amanu la tattakhizu bitanatan min dunikum la ya'lunakum khabala. So ya ayyuha means O you. Allazina, those, amanu, believed, la, not, tattakhizu, make, bitanatan, so outside, bitanatan, someone who's a foreigner, min dunikum, from you. So idiomatically it would be, I mean, before even doing it idiomatically, literally it would be, O those who believed, not make outside of you. O you who believe, not make outside of you uh, confidant. So min dunikum is uh, outside of you. Bitanatan is someone who is a friend, someone who is a who becomes your confidant. So la tattakhizu bitanatan, we do not make friends outside of your own circle, outside of your own circle. La ya'lunakum. So la ya'lunakum would mean they do not desist. They do not desist from you, khabala, to make you or to harm you or to harass you. So la ya'lunakum khabala would mean that they are those people who will leave no stone unturned to inflict harm on you. Waddu. So what? In fact, let me also do the idiomatic translation of the complete sentence. So it says, "O you who believe, do not make friends from outside of you. Do not make friends from outside of you, because why is that? They spare and they leave no stone unturned to harm you. They are always after harming you. Waddu means they like. Ma anittum. Waddu ma anittum. So they prefer to harm you. Waddu ma anittum. So they prefer or they wish that ma anittum would be something that makes you stressful, something that brings you into difficulty. So they want that difficulties should come to you. Kad, in fact, badat. So badat means something that becomes evident. So kad badat means indeed becomes evident. Al baghdha. So al baghdha means enmity or animosity. So basically, this is the plural of bughz, so baghdha. Min, from, afwahihim, from their mouths. Wa, and, ma, that, tukhfi, hide, suduruhum, their hearts. So sudur is the plural of sadr. So suduruhum would mean their hearts. Akbar, greater. Waddu ma anittum would mean they want, they desire that you are put into this difficulty, that difficulties come your way. Kad badatil baghdau min afwahim, indeed becomes or became evident from their mouths their animosity. So idiomatically, it would mean their animosity or their enmity has become evident from their mouths. And what they conceal in their hearts is even greater. وَمَا تُخْفِي, and what they hide. وَمَا تُخْفِي, what they conceal, what they hide. Suduruhum, in their hearts, akbar, is greater. So what they say from their tongues is also something which is very harsh, but what they still hide in their hearts is even more evil. Qad, indeed, bayyanna, we have made evident, lakum, for you, al ayat, revelations, in, if, kuntum, you, taqilun, use your intellect. So, qad bayyanna lakum would mean that indeed we have made evident for you revelations, or means our revelations, if you use your intellect. Yes, yes. Ha antum ulai tuhibbunahum wala yuhibbunakum. So ha antum would mean that it is you. So this word ha basically is appended to antum, and it means it's like it's used to focus the attention of the addressee. So ha antum would mean it is you. Ulai who tuhibbunahum. So tuhibbunahum would mean that it is you who would like to love them and to befriend them. Wala and wa is and, la is not. Yuhibbunakum, they don't love you. Wa and, yeah, wa and tu'minuna, there's tu'minuna, you believe, bil kitab, on the book, kullihi, all of it. So ha antum ulai tuhibbunahum would mean it is you who love them, but they do. وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْكِتَابِ كُلِّهِ, and you believe in the book of God, all of it. So you believe in all, you totally believe in the book of God. You entirely believe in the book of God. Wa and, iza, when, laqukum, they meet you. And wa iza laqukum would mean and when they meet you. Qalu, they say, amanna, we have believed. Wa and iza, when, khalau, they are in private, they are alone. Azdu, so azdu means they bite. Alaykum, on you. Anamina, so al anamila of course refers to fingertips. This is like a idiom which says that they show extreme rage, minal ghaiz, because of fury. So so literally it would mean, and when they meet you, they say, we have believed. And when they are alone on you, which means that they are not in front of you, they bite their fingertips because of rage, because of fury. Qul, say, mutu, go and die, bighayzikum, because of your rage. So it is like that parenthetical sentence that we have already discussed, that they are told that if this is what you think in your hearts, then mutu bi ghayzikum. So the Prophet is being told to tell them, go and die with your rage. Inna, indeed, Allah, God, alimun, knowledgeable, bizatis sudur, what is in the sudur, what is in the hearts. So inna, indeed, Allah, God, alimun, knowledgeable or aware of, bizatis sudur, what is in the hearts. So God is aware of what is in the hearts. In, if, tamsaskum means reaches you, hasanatun, something good, tasuhum, it makes them sad. If reaches you good, it makes them sad. So idiomatically it would mean if something good reaches you, if something good befalls you, it makes them sad. Wa and, in tusibkum means reaches you, sayyi'atun, some harm, some calamity, yafrahu, they become happy, biha, with it. In tamsaskum hasanatun tasuhum wa in tusibkum sayyi'atun yafrahu biha. That would mean that if something good reaches you, if something good befalls you, they become sad. And if something bad or some calamity befalls you, then they become happy. wa, and, in, if, tasbiru, you persevere, wa, and, tattaqu, be pious, la, not, yadurrukum, shall harm you, kaiduhum, kaid is a plot or scheme, whom, there's, shay'a, the slightest. So, wa in tasbiru wa tattaqu, if you show patience and you show piety, then none of their schemes, la yadurrukum, so yadurru means to harm, kum, you, kaiduhum, their kaid of course means evil scheme, shay'a, the slightest. So if you are patient, which means if you persevere and you are pious, then their ploy, then their plots are not going to harm you the slightest. Inna, indeed, Allah, God, bima ya'maloon, what they do, bima, what, ya'maloon, they do, muhit, surrounding. So literally it would mean indeed God, what they do, surrounding. So idiomatically it would mean indeed what they do, God surrounds it, which means, of course, that God is fully, capable of taking account of it. It is something that He can really undo, and He can really put them to shame. Wa is ghadawta min ahlika, wa, and, is, when, ghadawta. Ghadawta means when you go in the morning, min ahlika. So min ahlika means from your house, or when you went from your house, or when you left your house. So ghadaw, of course, refers to early in the morning. So when you left your house early in the morning, tubawwi'ul mu'minin. So tubawwi means to place or to position. Al mu'minun, the believers. Maqa'ida. So maqa'ida is the plural of maq'ad, and it means trenches or battle posts. So when you left your house, or in fact, a more accurate translation would be, and remember when you left your house in the morning, to place or to position the believers in their battle posts for battle, lil qital, for the battle, wa, and, Allah, God, Sami, hears, Alim, knowledgeable. So wallahu Samiun Alim would mean that God hears and is knowledgeable. He hears all and He knows all. Of course, this is referring to the fact that this is how the battle was fought, and this is referring to the Battle of Uhud. We have already discussed this in our explanation earlier on. So, is, remember, hammat. So hammat means to have an intention. Ta'ifatan. So ta'ifatan means two groups. Minkum, from among you. An, that. Tafshala, cowardice. So is hammat ta'ifatani minkum an tafshala would mean that, remember, when two of your groups, two of amongst your groups, an tafshala, became, so tafshala actually means to be faint-hearted, to be a coward. So it is referring to those two groups which left the believers in the leadership of Abdullah ibn Ubay. So remember when two of your groups were overcome with cowardice. Wallahu waliyuhuma, wa, and, Allah, God, waliyuhuma. So waliyuhuma would mean God is their protector. Wa, and, ala, on, Allah, God, falyatawakkal, should trust, al mu'minun, the believers. So literally it would mean, and God is their helper, and on God trust the believers. Or in other words, it would mean that the believers should put their trust in God. So this is how we would idiomatically translate it. Wa, and, laqad, indeed, nasarakumullah, God helped you. Nasarakum means help you, and Allah is God. Indeed, when God helped you, bi Badr, at the battle of Badr, ba, and, antum, you, azilla. So azilla means you were weak. It is the plural of Zalil, and in the Arabic language, the word Zalil actually means someone who is weak in strength. So, وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ. It would mean that remember when God helped you in the battle of Badr when you were very weak. فَاتَّقُوا. Therefore, fear Allah, God. Therefore, fear God. لَعَلَّكُمْ. So that you tashkurun are grateful to Him. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ tashkurun. So therefore, fear God so that you are grateful to Him. Is taqulu lil mu'minina alan yakfiyakum. Is when. Taqulu you. Of course, you were saying. Lil mu'minina to the believers. Is not. Lan. So is basically not is and lan is not. So alan is not. Yakfikum. Sufficient for you. I that yumiddakum helps you. Rabbukum your Lord. Be salasa the alaf. So salasa the alaf means 3,000. Minal malaika from amongst the angels. Munzaleen. So munzaleen means who are sent down. So idiomatically it would mean remember when you were telling the believers that is not sufficient for you your Lord's help when He sent down 3,000 of His angels. Bala. Yes, why not? In if tasbiru you persevere. Wa and tattaku. Tattaku means you are God conscious or you're pious. Wa and ya'tukum they come to you min fawrihim immediately. Haza this yumdidkum your God will help. Yumdidkum actually would mean help you. Rabbukum your Lord. So your Lord will help you. Bi khamsati alaf. So salasati alaf meant 3,000 and khamsati alaf means 5,000. Minal malaika from among the angels. Musawwimin. So musawwim means who are stamped or who are they are given marks so that they can be recognized that they are distinct. So bala in tasbiru wa tattaku wa ya'tukum min fawrihim would mean that why not if you show perseverance and you are God conscious and if they come to you immediately then your Lord is going to help you with 5,000 angels who are specifically stamped or marked for this purpose. وَمَا جَعَلَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَّا بُشْرَى لَكُمْ وَلِتَطْمَئِنَّ قُلُوبُكُمْ بِهِ. Wa and ma that جَعَلَهُ اللَّهُ God made, or in fact it will be that God made it. جَعَلَهُ. So who is referring to the previous part that God is someone who has made this. What has He? In fact, let me retranslate it because ma is here in the negation. So that is what we call ma nafia. So it would be wa and ma not. Ja'alahu made it. Allah God illa except. Bushra. Bushra means glad tidings. Lakum for you. So God only made these, or God only did this to give glad tidings to you. Wa and lay for tatma'inna. So tatma'inna means to give assurance. Qulubukum your hearts. So the plural of kalb is qulub. Bihi through it. So basically what was said earlier on that the Almighty helped the believers in the battle of Badr and they are being told that this is what happened. And God said that this victory was nothing but glad tidings and assurance for the hearts of the believers. وَمَا النَّصْرُ إِلَّا مِنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ الْعَزِيزِ الْحَكِيمِ. Wa and ma not. An-Nasr. Nasr means help. Illa except. Min indillah from God. Al-Aziz the powerful. Al-Hakim the wise. So it means that and not help except from God and not help except from God, the powerful, the wise. This is how we would literally translate it. But of course, idiomatically, it would mean that help does not come except from God. Or in other words, help only comes from God who is the mighty, who is the powerful and who is the wise. لِيَقْطَعَ. So li is because yaqta'a. So yaqta'a means to cut or to sever. طَرَفًا مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. Tarafa means part or side. مِنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, of those who have disbelieved. أو, or yakbit. أو yakbitahum. So yakbitahum means to humiliate them. فَيَنْقَلِبُوا. So they become خَائِبِينَ, humiliated or disgraced. So, in other words, the sentence is continuing that God made this victory to be glad tidings and assurance for the believers, and help only comes from God, and so that God is able to sever one part of the disbelievers through this victory, or humiliate them so that they end up in disgrace. Khaibin, disgrace. Laysa laka minal amri shay. Laysa, not. Laka, you. Minal amr, from the matter. Shayun, anything. So there is. So this is basically. Like it's very literal. Laysa laka minal amr shayun would literally mean not for you anything, not for you in this matter anything. So, of course, idiomatically, it would mean that you do not have any jurisdiction in this matter. لَيْسَ لَكَ مِنَ الْأَمْرِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. You don't have any jurisdiction in this matter. أَوْ يَتُوبَ عَلَيْهِمْ أَوْ يُعَذِّبَهُمْ. Or God forgives them, or يُعَذِّبَهُمْ, or God inflicts them with punishment. Therefore, innahum, they, zalimun, unjust. So, as we can clearly see that here it seems that the Prophet had this thing in his mind that he wanted God to forgive these people for their negligence. But he says, Laysa laka min al-amri shay. You don't have any authority in this. If God wants, He will forgive them, and if He wants, He will punish them because they are unjust. So basically, this is what we can see as a comment made by God on what they had thought. And of course, this was a thought that had arisen in the minds of the Prophet. وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Wa, and lillah, for God. Le, for Allah, God. Walillah, for God, and for God. Ma, that. Fi, in. As-samawat, the heavens. So sama is the singular, samawat is the plural. So samawat would mean heavens or the skies. Wa, and. Ma, that. Fi, in. Al-ard, the earth. So for God is that which is in the heavens and that which is in the earth. In other words, it would mean that to God belongs everything which is in the heavens and which is in the earth. Yaghfiru liman yasha. Yaghfiru, He forgives. Liman yasha, for whomsoever He wants. Wa, and. Yu'azzibu, He punishes. Man yasha, whomsoever He wants. Wallahu ghafurur rahim. Wa, and Allah, God, ghafur, merciful or forgiving, and rahim, ever merciful. So He forgives whomsoever He wants. Yasha means whom He wants. Liman, for whom. Yaghfiru is maghfirah, or forgives. Wa, and. Yu'azzibu, or gives azab or gives punishment. Man yasha, to whomsoever He wants. So He forgives whomsoever He wants and He punishes whomsoever He wants. And God is forgiving and ever merciful. And I've already explained the fact that whenever the word man yasha comes, it doesn't mean that God does something on His whims without any basis or foundation. No. Yes, He will do whatever He likes, but whatever He likes is based on wisdom and it is based on His justice as well. But man yasha actually refers to the fact that no one can stop Him. He will do whatever He likes. No one can hold His hand. Yes, whatever He will do, He will do with justice and with wisdom, but no one can stop Him from doing what He intends to do. So this brings us to an end to this section of verses. We have finished the literal and idiomatic translation as well. So before we start off the next part, which begins with verse 130, if you have any questions regarding what we have just studied, please raise them.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem, and assalamu alaikum, everyone. So the first question comes from Dr. Muhammad Asif. Please unmute your mic and ask your question.
My question pertains to the verse 119. Ha antum ulai tuhibbunahum wa la yuhibbunakum wa tu'minuna bil kitabi kullihim. Bil kitabi kullihim. So this here, bil kitabi kullihi, this refers to the earlier scriptures. Why not the expression, if it had been وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْكُتُبِ كُلُّهُم, like this? Why is it mentioned in
Yeah.
singular
Yeah.
form?
This is because this is a very common style of the Quran, and I've discussed this elsewhere also, that the Quran says that the only real book that was revealed before the Quran itself is the Torah, because the Injil and the Zabur, they are just supplements to the Torah, and that is the book that gave the Sharia after, of course, Abraham had been inducted as the patriarch of the Abrahamic nations. So the Almighty refers to the book Al-Kitab before the Quran as the Torah. So sometimes, in order to stress this fact that the real book before the Quran is the Torah, because that was the first Sharia, so to speak, given in the form of the book to anyone in Abraham's progeny. And secondly, as I said, it is sometimes used in the plural also. We have the word kutub also being used several times in the Quran. And in that case, we find that this usage is mostly because Muslims are told that they must not discriminate between all the books of God. So whether they are the real book, which is the Torah, and the supplements, which are Zabur and Injil, they must not differentiate between any of these books, because all of them have come from God. So at times that plural is also used, but many a time the singular is used to stress that the real book is actually the Torah. So that is what is meant here actually.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Saleem. Akram Bhatti Saab, if you can just unmute your mic and ask your question.
Sir, when there's a ya or ta mentioned for the muzare in front of a verb, like here, for example, in 124, it's taqulul mu'mina allan yakfiyakum. So we transfer interchangeably, like here we say, like when you said to the believers, it is not you, it is not enough for you. Yakfiyakum. That should be takfiyakum.
No.
Similarly,
Yakfiyakum relates to Rabbukum. Actually, yakfiyakum relates to Rabbukum.
Okay. And similarly,
yakfiyakum, yes. So is not the help of God sufficient for you? So yakfiyakum, the file of that or the subject of that verb is God Himself. That is why we use the word yakfiyakum. The word ya has been used in deference to God.
So there was a question. Sometimes the ta here, and then also translated
change. Yeah. So you see, these are all if inflection, that we call them as inflections, and they change with the change of the speaker, and accordingly they have to be translated.
Okay. So
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. We have no more questions at this time, so if you want to continue with the session.
Okay. So now we start off with verse 130 onwards. It says, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la ta'kulur riba adha'afan mudha'afa wattaqullaha la'allakum tuflihun. So, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu, of course, the simple translation is that, believers, if in future also you want God's help, do not consume this interest, doubling it many times over, and keep fearing God that you may prosper. So, this is the verse, or one of the verses, which has led many people to believe that the interest which the Quran actually prohibits is usury or a very high interest rate, because as you can see, the words are adha'afa mudha'afa, which means doubling it and increasing it many times over. So as a result of not understanding a very specific style of the Arabic language, people have ended up thinking that, well, the Quran only prohibits compound interest and not simple interest, because it is in compound interest that the money becomes doubled and quadrupled. Now, the issue is that this is a misconception, and the reason is that we are not understanding a particular style of the Quran. So you see, when it is said, La taqulu riba dha'afa mudha'afa, actually what is being said is that you are consuming interest, and that too in such a high ratio, then that should not be done. So consuming interest at a high rate does not mean that you can consume interest at a low rate. It is the high part is just delineating the heinousness of the whole enterprise. This is something very similar. If you recall in Surah Bani Israel, it is said, La taqtulu awladakum khashyata imlaq. Do not kill your children for fear of poverty. So this would not mean that if there is no fear of poverty, you can kill them. It is only expressing the fact that you are killing your children, and that too because of the fear of poverty. So that for fear of poverty, that part is just expressing again the nature of the horrific, in fact, the horrific nature of the situation. So we have to understand that this actually doubling it many times over is only meant to delineate the awfulness of the enterprise. So we must understand that in the Arabic language, at times words are used not to connote a separate meaning, but just to actually qualify the horrific nature of the whole enterprise. So, for example, in the English language, if I say that you are stealing in the mosque, how evil you are. So would that mean that I can steal outside the mosque? Of course not. So when I'm saying that you're stealing in the mosque, it only makes the crime graver by saying, and you're stealing and that too in the mosque. So this style is something that is implied here, that you are consuming interest and that too doubling and tripling it, or quadrupling it. Not that doubling or quadrupling interest is only forbidden. So it's not that, for example, you can kill your children if you don't have any fear of poverty, or for example, if you are in a situation that you say that okay, if it's not in the mosque, then if it's fine, I can maybe tell a lie outside the mosque. When I say you are telling a lie and that too in the mosque, it doesn't mean that you can tell a lie outside the mosque. So in the mosque is just adding to the horrific nature of the whole crime, that one, that you're doing something very bad, and that too in the mosque. So similarly, when it said la ta'kulu riba, it means don't consume interest. And azafa muzafa does not mean just don't consume high interest. It means you're consuming interest, and that too in a way that it's doubling and tripling. So that is what the style here is. So in other words, it's riba, whether it's a simple interest or compound interest, whether it's doubling or not doubling, that is just besides the point. It is forbidden as it is. Whether you consume it with a lesser amount of interest or a greater amount of interest, it's just going to add to the horrificness of the whole venture. But it doesn't mean that consuming interest in a small ratio is allowed. So I hope that becomes clear. So that is precisely what is being said here. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُفْلِحُونَ. Fear God so that you may prosper. وَاتَّقُوا النَّارَ الَّتِي أُعِدَّتْ لِلْكَافِرِينَ. And fear the fire that has been prepared for these disbelievers. وَأَطِيعُوا اللَّهَ وَأَطِيعُوا الرَّسُولَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تُرْحَمُونَ. And obey God and His Messenger so that mercy is shown to you. وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ عَرْضُهَا السَّمَاوَاتُ وَالْأَرْضُ أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. And run to advance to the forgiveness of your Lord. How beautiful! If you have any flair of the language, you'll see that it's such a soothing verse. It has that calming effect on you. It says that run to advance to the forgiveness of your Lord and to the paradise, which is as vast as the heavens and the earth. أُعِدَّتْ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Prepared for the righteous, prepared for the pious, prepared for the muttaqeen. So it's like saying that this is the call of God. Run to His forgiveness, because His forgiveness will be consequential in blessing you with His paradise. And this paradise, you should not think is something small. It is as wide as these heavens and the earth, and we know how wide the heavens and the earth are. So uiddat lil muttaqeen, it has been prepared for the righteous. الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء والكاظمين الغيظ والعافين عن الناس والله يحب المحسنين. So الذين ينفقون في السراء والضراء means that these are people who spend whether they are in ease or whether they are in difficulty. So sarra means ease and dharra means difficulty. So these are two opposite words. And this is the beauty of such people, that believers are not those who only spend when they are rich or when they have money to spare. No, they are ones who spend regardless of their own financial situation. If they are pushed to the limit, if they are tight in their resources, even then they spend. They might spend less, but they don't desist from spending. And when they are in ease, they also spend at that time. So it's not a question of the amount, it is the question of your own sensitivity. If you have less, you must at least dispense with that and don't think that the small amount is nothing before God. So believers are those who never shy away from spending in ease or difficulty. So they are ones who spend in ease and in difficulty. And wal kazimin al ghayz, and they are ones who curb their anger if they encounter excesses from people. Of course, referring to the fact when you spend at times, people become angry, for sometimes you're not giving people what they ask for, or maybe you are politely refusing them. So it is said that on such occasions, they are ones who withhold their anger, وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ, and they also forgive people. وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, and God likes such righteous people. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ, and they are those who, when they commit something which is a belongs to sexual misconduct, and they think that they have wronged their souls, zakarullah, they immediately remember God, fastaghfaru li zunubihim, and they ask for His forgiveness. وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ, and they do not deliberately persist in what they have done. Lam yusirru ala ma fa'alu. And before that it is said, وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ, who except God can forgive these sins. So then it is said, أُولَٰئِكَ جَزَاؤُهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ أُولَٰئِكَ جَزَاؤُهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ وَجَنَّاتٌ تَجْرِي مِن تَحْتِهَا الْأَنْهَارُ خَالِدِينَ فِيهَا وَنِعْمَ أَجْرُ الْعَامِلِينَ. Now these verses, they are a huge amount of assurance given to the believers. And look how beautifully the Almighty has actually, it's like being so merciful, and it's like saying that God is always going to be there for us. And how does that happen? It's the Quran says that whenever they do something which is sexually inappropriate and they wrong their souls, and they immediately remember God, well, God, I've done something wrong, and they ask for God's forgiveness. فَاسْتَغْفِرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ, and who except God can forgive them. وَمَنْ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبَ إِلَّا اللَّهُ. And then the other thing which is mentioned, again, a very nice quality, a very commendable quality of the believers, is that وَلَمْ يُصِرُّوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلُوا. They don't insist on the wrong they have done. They immediately realize their mistake. They don't become audacious on their wrongdoings. They don't become stubborn, but they immediately realize that I have done something wrong and I must seek God's forgiveness. وَهُمْ يَعْلَمُونَ, and they know this very well. And about such people it is said, أُولَٰئِكَ جَزَاؤُهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ مِّن رَبِّهِمْ, which means it is these who shall be rewarded with forgiveness from their Lord, and with orchards beneath which streams flow. They shall dwell there forever, and what a grand reward this is for those who do righteous deeds. And I've explained this many times, that remember, when it is said that there are orchards beneath which streams flow, this is a very common expression of the Quran. You'll find whenever the picture of paradise is painted in the Quran, you'll find these words, tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, that below these orchards, rivers will flow. They should not in any way give the impression that paradise has underground rivers and orchards have, the rivers running underneath them. This is not the case. So you see, in the Arab tradition, orchards which were situated at high land, so that they were on hills or mountain tops or rooftops, so they would be the orchards that would be relished by them, because they would be safe as a result from any storm, especially of rain, because of being on high land, and rivers being surrounding that high land would actually not become as high as to devastate that orchard. So when it is said that these are orchards beneath which streams are flowing, it's not that these streams are underground. It's just telling us that these orchards are at a very high level, and the streams are flowing beneath them. For example, they are on the rooftop or near the mountaintop, near the hilltop, and the streams are flowing across or around that hill, so that they are not damaged in any way. And this was also something very cherished by the Arabs, and the Quran therefore makes this point a number of times. وَنِعْمَ أَجْرُ الْعَامِلِينَ, which means, and what a grand and what a wonderful reward it is this for those who do these deeds. For al-ni'ma ajrul amilin, what a grand reward for those who do these deeds. قد خلت من قبلكم سنن فسيروا في الأرض فانظروا كيف كان عاقبة المكذبين هذا بيان للناس فهدى وموعظة للمتقين. Believers, the final victory shall be yours. Numerous examples of this have gone before you. So roam about in this land of yours and see what fate those who disbelieved met. This is a very clear warning to those who are adamant in denying the Prophet, and a guidance and a counsel to the God-fearing. هَذَا بَيَانٌ لِلنَّاسِ وَهُدًى وَمَوْعِظَةٌ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. So remember, the disbelievers were always given the examples of the past nations, and they were told that if you roam around and see that how the Ad, the Samud, the people of Lot, because we all know that the area in which prophets of God have come, they are very close to the area of Arabia and to Palestine, and the Arabs very well knew these nations and how destructively they met their fate, because their own poetry, their own compositions reflect their devastation. So they are very well aware of them. So the Quran is referring to their own area and telling them that, look what happened to these nations. They intentionally denied their prophet and they ended up totally routed, and you will be no different if you persist in this denial. وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. So rest assured and do not despair and be sad because of the losses you have been afflicted with. If you are believers, you shall finally reign supreme. Again, this is a verse which addresses the companions of the Prophet. And remember, in the Battle of Uhud, they had suffered this reversal earlier on. But the Quran says that if you do not lose heart and if you are not sad, and you should not be sad, you should not lose heart and you should not be sad, you should not despair, because ultimately victory is going to be yours if you are true believers. Now, again, this verse is something that must not lead us into any misconception, thinking that basically, since we are believers, ultimate victory will be ours. So remember, this is a very special category of believers which is being referred to here, and it is basically the Prophet's companions who are being told. So remember, for the Prophet's companions and the Prophets of God, victory has been ordained by the Almighty, and it is governed by that special law of Itmamul Hujjah, the law of Risala, which means that God's messengers are always meant to prevail. And they might suffer reversals, they might suffer defeats, but ultimately they are going to prevail. So remember, this is specifically for the companions of the prophets of God as a result of that law, but not to the rest of us, like people who are living in the post-prophetic era. And I do remember this verse being quoted by many Muslim freedom fighters, I would say, or maybe activists who say that, look, this is how the Quran has said that we must not despair, we must not lose heart, because ultimately victory is going to be ours. And that victory has yet to come in the last 200 or 300 years, because, of course, this is a verse that does not apply to us. And people think that because the Quran says that since you are people, since you are mu'mineen, since you are believers, so you are bound to prevail. I mean, you can clearly see that this victory hasn't come in the last so many hundred years, and at the same time, as I said, this is by not understanding the law of the Quran, which relates to God's messengers. So about them, it is always destined that they are going to prevail, but not for the rest. So now it says, إِن يَمْسَسْكُمْ كَرْحٌ فَقَدْ مَسَّ الْقَوْمَ كَرْحٌ مِثْلُهُ وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ وَلِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَيَتَّخِذَ مِنكُمْ شُهَدَاءَ وَاللَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الظَّالِمِينَ. So it says, if you have suffered a wound now, a similar wound was suffered before this by the enemy too. So remember, this is the Quran telling them that if in this battle of Uhud you have been, you have suffered a reversal, at least in the initial part, then remember your enemy was also inflicted with a reversal, with defeat earlier on. And of course, this is referring to the Battle of Badr. So Muslims are being assured that if you are inflicted with any loss in this Battle of Uhud, remember your enemy was also afflicted with a similar loss in the Battle of Badr. And then the Quran says, وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ, which means that, and we alternate these vicissitudes among people to test them. So it's like circulating the good and bad days amongst people. And why is that? وَلِيَعْلَمَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ, to test them, and so that God may know the true believers and sift out those who, by even laying down their lives, bear witness to the truth. Try to understand these experiences and remember that God does not like those who are unjust. So it is clearly being told here that one of the reasons for this tough situation that arose in the Battle of Uhud was to test the believers, to test their mettle, and at the same time let them know that now this is an opportunity which is given to them by God, that if they in any way uh, would like to lay down their lives, to sacrifice their lives for the cause of God, and this is something that they have an opportunity. So because of this setback, Muslims should not think that the Almighty has now started loving these disbelievers. This is not true. He never loves people who are unjust to their souls, and precisely this is what is meant by the words "Wallahu la yuhibbu zalimin." So God is actually assuring the believers. He's telling them that don't think that if you have suffered a defeat, then God has started to love these disbelievers. No, this does not happen. He never loves people who are unjust to their souls. It is only that he had some expediencies, some maslahah, some benefit before him, because of which he put up with this defeat of the Muslims. وَلْيُمَحِّصَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَيَمْحَقَ الْكَافِرِينَ. Now, this is something of that genre which is being explained. And what is that? And we alternate these vicissitudes so that God may separate the believers and destroy these disbelievers. So this is what the Almighty wants, that He wants to do that tamyiz. In Arabic, this is called tamyiz, which means to separate the believers and the disbelievers. So you know the hypocrites have infiltrated in the camps of the Muslims and they cannot be distinguished. But it is these trials and tests which actually distinguish the believers and the disbelievers, because even the hypocrites, when they see these trials, they just leave the folds of Islam and go to the opposite camp from where they came from. So these trials are a means to distinguish people the way and the place where they stand. So now it is said, Am hasibtum an tadkhulul jannata walamma ya'lamillahu allazina jahadu minkum wa ya'lam as-sabirin. Did you suppose that you would enter paradise, and God has not even seen as yet those among you who waged jihad and those who did not? And we alternate these vicissitudes so that God also knows the enduring among them. Now the Almighty has given this this experience, or this one of the reasons why at times this happens, that God does not help, or maybe His help arrives late, or in these circumstances the situation is such that Muslims suffer reversals. So God says that, well, do you think that going to paradise is an easy affair? Am hasibtum an tadkhulul jannah. God is not going to send you to paradise without testing you, without finding out who one actually deserves to be sent there, who is the one who struggles, and وَيَعْلَمَ الصَّابِرِينَ, and God would like to know who are the ones who persevere in the wake of all these trials. And then وَلَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ تَمَنَّوْنَ الْمَوْتَ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ تَلْقَوْهُ فَقَدْ رَأَيْتُمُوهُ وَأَنْتُمْ تَنْظُرُونَ. Now you are giving up courage, and you have been wishing for death before it manifested itself in front of you in this manner. So your wish has been granted because you have stared death in its face. So basically it is saying, وَلَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ تَمَنَّوْنَ الْمَوْتَ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ تَلْقَوْهُ. You were wishing that death should come to you. You would die as martyrs. And now this is something of an opportunity which has presented itself to you. If you would like to lay down your life for the cause of God, okay, this is the time, this is the occasion. So basically God has said, فَقَدْ رَأَيْتُمُوهُ وَأَنْتُمْ تَنْظُرُونَ. This death that you wished for, to die in God's cause, now you have stared it in the eye. You have looked it directly in the eye. It was almost there for you. So now you have to know that this opportunity was given to you, and you did not actually fully accomplish what was meant at that time. وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ أَفَإِنْ مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلَ انقلبتم عَلَى أَعْقَابِكُمْ وَمَنْ يَنْقَلِبْ عَلَى عَقِبَيْهِ فَلَنْ يَضُرَّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا وَسَيَجْزِي اللَّهُ الشَّاكِرِينَ. Muhammad is no more than a messenger. The news of his killing has shattered your morale. Other messengers have passed before him also, and they too passed through the phases of life and death. Then if he dies or is slain, will you people revert back? Remember that he who reverts back will not harm God in any way, and soon God will reward those who have remained grateful to him in all circumstances. So we remember that in the Battle of Uhud, at a particular time, it was circulated that the Prophet had passed away and he had been martyred. Now, it is said that, well, people thought that he's never going to die. And how could he die? Because he's God's messenger. So it is here that believers, they are told that in spite of being a messenger of God, he was a human being, he was a mortal, and there were other messengers before him. So if they died, your prophet is going to die also. Although he did not die at that occasion, it was not that he died in the Battle of Uhud, that was just a rumor, but it was circulated, and then it became it gave God the perfect opportunity to tell the believers that even if this rumor has come to you and you thought that he would never die, then that rumor is incorrect. But let me tell you that death is one day going to come to your prophet, because he's a human being, and just as previous messengers passed away, he too is going to pass away. So kad khalat min qablihi rusul, messengers have passed away before him as well. So afa immata aw qutila in qalabtum. So if he is given death, or he is murdered, will you just run away or turn your backs? So this is basically admonishing the Muslims, that because what happened was, at the time of Battle of Uhud, when this rumor spread far and wide, Muslims actually lost hope in any further action. They just stopped doing what was required of them to do, and because, I mean, it's like the whole news had totally shattered them. So they are being told that this should not be the case. If your prophet passes away, you just stop doing what is your responsibility. وَمَن يَنْقَلِبْ عَلَىٰ عَقِبَيْهِ فَلَن يَضُرَّ اللَّهَ شَيْئًا. Because if you run away and you shirk your responsibilities, you are not going to harm anyone. You're not going to harm God. You're just going to harm yourselves. And وَسَيَجْزِي اللَّهُ الشَّاكِرِينَ, and God will reward those who have remained grateful to Him. وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تَمُوتَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ كِتَابًا مُؤَجَّلًا وَمَن يُرِدْ ثَوَابَ الدُّنْيَا نُؤْتِيهِ مِنْهَا وَمَن يُرِدْ ثَوَابَ الْآخِرَةِ نُؤْتِيهِ مِنْهَا وَسَنَجْزِي الشَّاكِرِينَ. You gave up and forgot that everyone dies with the permission of God only, in accordance with what is written for him, and also forgot that he who desires the reward of this world, we shall give him from it, and he who desires the reward of the life to come, we shall give him from there, and we shall surely recompense those who are thankful to us. So once again, it is said that وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ أَن تَمُوتَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, that everyone dies with the order of God, with the permission of God, and because this is something which has been ordained for him. إِلَّا كِتَابًا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ كِتَابًا مُؤَجَّلًا. It is something which has been destined for him. Everyone has come in this world to go away. We are born to die. So don't forget that if God's messenger is in front of you, he is going to live eternally. No, he's going to leave you one day. So that should not be a cause of any disruption. That should not be a cause of creating any consternation among you. You must still remain organized, because these things are part of life. People come and people go. Yes, he was a messenger of God, but like all messengers, he is destined to go one day. And if you desire the good of this world, God will give it to you. And if you desire what is in the hereafter, of course, he's going to give it to you. وَسَنَجْزِي الشَّاكِرِينَ, and God is going to reward people who are grateful to the Almighty. وَكَأَيٍّ مِّن نَبِيٍّ قَاتَلَ مَعَهُ رِبِّيُّونَ كَثِيرٌ فَمَا وَهَنُوا لِمَا أَصَابَهُم فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَمَا اسْتَكَانُوا وَمَا ضَعُفُوا وَمَا اسْتَكَانُوا وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الصَّابِرِينَ. Try to understand these facts and remember that there came many a prophet alongside whom many godly people have fought. So when they were faced with hardships for the cause of God, they were not daunted, nor did they show weakness, nor did they lay down their arms before the enemy. In fact, they remained steadfast in all circumstances, and God loves such steadfast people. So once again, this admonishment and this warning to the Muslims is continuing, and it is being told that before the prophet that you have with you today, there are so many other prophets of God who have come, and they fought alongside many other people who were their companions. فَمَا بَهَنُوا لِمَا أَصَابَهُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. And when they were faced with hardships for the cause of God, they were not daunted. So remember, this is a comment being made by the Quran on the attitude of the Muslims in the Battle of Uhud, in which they had become extremely cowardly, and they had become faint-hearted, and they are being told that, well, this is not the right way, and this is not how the past people who you succeeded actually are ones who behaved. So in order to portray this meaning, the word wahan, so wahan and zof and istakana, these three words, all of these three words actually mean weakness. And there's a subtle difference, of course. So wahan refers to the weakness which is produced in a person because of fear of death and love of life. So wahan, so all these three words, waham, zorf, and istakana, I mean, all these have the connotation of weakness, but there is a subtle difference. So as I said, wahan actually refers to that weakness which is because of the fear for death and love for life. And the barrier which occurs as a result of this between intention in practice is called zorf. So zorf is when your intention and your practice, I mean, of course, they become bifurcated, because now you have this love of life and the fear of death being overcome, and you're overcome with that. So this makes you weak in your practice. And from this zorf, the consequence of submitting to the enemy is called istakana. So remember, these words are mastakanu, that you became weak. So istakana here means that you gave up, you laid down your arms before your enemy. Wallahu la yuhibbu sabirin, and God does not like such people. Or Wallahu yuhibbu sabirin, in fact, means that God likes people who persevere. In fact, the previous words were Vama zarufu wa mastakanu, that they are the ones who actually were those people who were not weak, and they did not, as a result, submit to the enemy. And such people are those who are loved by God, because they persevere in His way. And then وَمَا كَانَ قَوْلَهُمْ إِلَّا أَنْ قَالُوا رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا ذُنُوبَنَا وَإِسْرَافَنَا فِي أَمْرِنَا وَثَبِّتْ أَقْدَامَنَا وَانْصُرْنَا عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرِينَ. Their only prayer was, Lord, forgive our sins and pardon the excesses we committed in our affairs. Make us firm of foot and help us against these disbelievers. So now the examples of those people who persevered in the cause of God is being cited. And he said, and it is said that when such people in their past were faced by such dangers, then they did not lose heart. They did not run away. What did they do? They held on to that hope, they held on to their own bravery, and they prayed to God. And what did they pray? They said, Rabbana afrigh alayna sabran wa Rabbana ighfir lana dhunubana wa israfana. Oh God, forgive our sins and our excesses, and make us strong in foot, which means make us steadfast, and give us help against these disbelieving people. And then what happened? فَآتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ ثَوَابَ الدُّنْيَا وَحُسْنَ ثَوَابِ الْآخِرَةِ Wallahu yuhibbul muhsinin. Then God gave them the reward of this world and also the glorious recompense of the world to come. These are the ones who are thorough in their deeds, and God likes those who are thorough in their deeds. So once again, the weakness that was shown by the believers in the Battle of Uhud is the comment that is continuing in these verses, and it shall continue as we will be seeing that in the next section of verses also. But the assurance that is being sounded is that similar adversities, similar difficulties came to people before them as well, who were also followers of their messengers, but they did not give up. They were strong in foot, they held their ground. And when they saw that they were outnumbered or they had to counter an attack, then they prayed to God, Rabbana ighfir lana dhunubana wa israfana. Oh God, that if we have been negligent, please forgive us for our negligence and make us strong in foot. Sabran wa sabbit aqdamana wansurna al qawmil kafirin, and grant us help against these disbelievers. So with this, viewers, we come to an end to this section of verses. Inshallah, we'll take up verse 149 and onwards on the next verses in our next session. And so for now, if you have any questions regarding what we have started, please raise them.
Dr. Saleem, yeah, we have one question from Mr. Akram Bhatti. Please unmute your mic and ask your question.
What's the difference in Junub and Sayyah?
Okay. So Sayyah generally refers to minor sins. And Zunub is a generic word which means sins. It could be minor as well as major. I mean, they are qualified by certain other adjectives. But whenever the word Sayyah means, it refers to minor sins. But the word Zunub is more general. It could refer to minor as well as major ones.
Dr. Muhammad Asif, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Yes, this is in subsequent. So my earlier question I asked regarding the verse 119. فَأَنْتُمْ أُولَٰئِ تُحِبُّونَهُمْ وَلَا يُحِبُّونَكُمْ, which, as you said, it conveys the warning of the God Almighty towards the Muslims the believers of that time that
Yeah.
you do not want to sever ties with these people of the book of that time, while the fact is that la yuhibbunakum, and despite the fact tu'minuna bil kitab. Can it be considered that sentence is mahzuf? I mean, and the fact is that tu'minuna bil kitabi kullihi wala yu'minuna bil kitabi kullihi.
Of course, that is what is meant here. When it says
So
"Wa
it
tu'minuna bil
means,
kitabi kullihi," it means that you are people who believe in the book, but contrary to these people, they don't.
yes, so it means the Quran is referring to when it says وَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْكِتَابِ كُلِّهِ, that you Muslims, you are following this book which is in toto, while you have been following. I am just referring to
Okay.
the earlier verse of the Quran where the Ahl Kitab has been said, Alam tara ilal lazina utu nasiban min al kitab.
Right.
In this context, because the Muslims of that time, the believers of that time, have been warned that you believe in the whole of the book. I mean, this book complements the earlier scriptures.
Okay.
And
I'm
so
just trying to
you
find out
want to
what
sever
verse
the
number.
ties.
Could you just point me to the verse number, please?
What's number 119?
Okay. Just let me come to that verse.
Antum aulai tuhibbunahum wala yuhibbunakum.
You see, I mean, I've just explained this earlier on that basically it is referring to the fact that it is you people who believe in all the books of God. And these people, they don't believe in all the books of God. So they have made their own book to be the only book of guidance that they think has come to them from God. Whereas the fact is that you people are ones who believe in all the books of God. So that is what is implied here.
So how it's a warning for the believers of that time, because the kalama is ha antum. It's I give you warning.
So
La
you see, I
don't
have
want
explained
to.
this. Yes, I do understand what you're saying. I've explained this that this is referring to the weaker people amongst the Muslims, the hypocrites. So they are being told that you would like to befriend them, but this is not what they want. So it's not that good Muslims or strong Muslims are being referred to here in this verse. This actually is referring to the weak Muslims or to the hypocrites who are found among them, that they would like to make friends with these the people of the book. They don't intend to make any friends with you, but you go back to them. So basically, it is they who are being warned. If you look at the context once again, you see the context. If you continue from verse 118 and see, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tattakhizu bitanatan min dunikum la ya'lunakum khabala. It was these hypocrites who wanted people from outside of them to be made their own friends. So basically, we have to remember that everywhere in the Quran, wherever Allazina Amanu is mentioned, it's not referring to believers as such who are good believers, who are austere, who are steadfast. The word Amanu encompasses weak believers also. And here, the previous verse, if you look at verse 118, it actually is referring to these simpletons amongst the believers, or the hypocrites, or the weak ones, who thought that, well, they can reciprocate them. But the Quran is telling them that these are people who have infiltrated in your ranks and they are going to cause nuisance. And they don't want to befriend you, but you would like to befriend them. So basically, this is the stress. That's why I was just looking at verse 118. And then it is said, Ha antum ulai tuhibbunahum wa la yuhibbunakum, that it is you who is taking lead in doing these things, and they are not interested in them. You believe in all the books of God. They have no such interest in all the books of God. So why would you like to make friends with such people who have this discrimination? So that is the amount of, I mean, that is the element of warning which is found in it. I hope you
Thank you
understand.
so much for that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Dr.
Just
Saleem.
read from verse 118. So you see, if you have to understand verse 118, you must first see what was the previous verse. So the previous verse is basically addressing the weak Muslims and actually commenting on their behavior of befriending non-Muslims who were there to harm them. So la tattakhizu bitanatan, that is where the whole address starts. And then it is said, Ha antum ulai tuhibbunahum.
Is the answer complete, Dr. Saleem? Should I move on?
Yes.
Uh, Thank you so much for that. Imran, if you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. You were explaining. So first, I wanted to ask a question that I know that when we did the Surah Baqarah, you had a lot of verses and from the Bible that were either supplementing or explaining the background of what was happening. I know I'm not seeing that in Surah Al Imran. That was the first part of my query. And the second is that when you explained the wahan, which I got, and then the da'af, and then istakan. If you can explain the da'af and the istakan again, please, that will be very, very helpful. So
istakana means to submit, to just lay down your arms and just as if to give up totally. So that's what istakana means. So it's a comment on these Muslims that they had just laid down their arms. They had just, first they were defeated in their minds. And then that defeat reached their limbs also, and then just laid down their arms. So the words zaf and wahan are basically conceptual. You're defeated from your mind. First, you get that feeling of defeat in your own mind, and then it travels and it makes you totally. You just give up, and then you say, "Okay, we're just going to surrender to the enemy." So basically, istakana means surrendering to the enemy.
and then I was wondering about the Bible's references that you had used.
Yes, actually, you see, most of these references they are probably a repetition of the references found in Baqarah, because you see here in Al Imran, basically the people of the book, the way they are being commented upon is regarding some of the incidents that have already taken place in some form or the other in Surah Baqarah. Yes, the difference is that in the case of Surah Baqarah, the Jews were being addressed. Here, the Christians are being primarily addressed. But I do keep an eye on areas in which I do think that there are quotations that can be brought forth from the Bible. But one thing, maybe especially for you, because you seem to be more interested that you have this cross-referencing, that if you can keep this book handy, which is called the Quran, the tafsir of the Quran. It is by Abdul Majid Daryabadi. He was a famous scholar of the subcontinent. It is available in the English language also, and you will find biblical parallels, not only from the Bible, of course, but from Jewish history also, that he cites them right besides Quranic verses, which he thinks are in parallel to the Jewish scriptures. So maybe you can do that. Also, at times, you see, in the interest of remaining near to the text, at times, these citations are skipped too, because of course we need to finish the surah also. But
Yes.
I do keep it in mind that whenever there is essential that some citation from the Bible has to be made, I try to make it. And so at times, yes, as I said, in the interest of time, that is not made. But as I said, people who are interested, if they could just have recourse to this book, it's a 2-volume, it's in fact a 4-volume tafsir of the Quran. It's a very handy tafsir for people who would like to know biblical parallels.
Thank you very much. Jazakumullah.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Saleem. Bhatti Saab, you can unmute your mic and ask your question now.
Thank you, dear. Sir, my question is regarding ayah number 17 of this surah. As-sabirina was-sadiqina wal-qanitina.
Right.
Bil-ashar.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I looked up 2-3 translations, the Quran, Al-Bayan, and most of the people have done this time ko they said it's Subah Sadiq or Taqi Sahab ne kiya ke it's before dawn. So what is that? Is it before Fajr or before Tahajjud?
That's basically referring to the Tahajjud prayer. Basically, the Tahajjud prayer.
But
The
why do they say daybreak?
just before daybreak.
Daybreak
just
is
before
Fajr?
dawn. No, just before dawn. Just before Fajr, which is the Tahajjud time.
Okay, because some says
So
the
sahar,
daybreak. Some
the word sahar basically refers to the same, and the word suhoor is from the same word that in which we consume sehri. So this is always pre-Fajr. Before
okay,
Fajr.
so pre-Fajr definitely.
Yeah.
Ji? Okay.
Yes.
So Sahar is a Fajr then? Sahar
No.
is Fajr?
Shahidina bil ashar, which means
Yes.
who seek forgiveness at the time of sahar, which means at the time of tahajjud. Just before Fajr, before the Fajr prayer arrives.
Okay, Jazakallah. That's it. That was clear.
Dr. Saleem, someone wants to know the name of the book that you just referred to Imran. If you can just repeat that name again.
Okay, I'm just going to show it to you. I have it. ये दिखाइएगा ये जो सामने पड़ेगी. I'm just going to show you a title so that you can just और आगे ये. So this is the book. It's called Tafsirul Quran, and it's called Translation and Commentary of the Holy Quran by Maulana Abdul Majid Daryabadi. It's not that thick. I mean, there are 4 volumes of this thickness, and it is available both in the Urdu language and in the English language, and both of them have been originally authored by Abdul Majid Daryabadi Sahab. And if you just Google them, I do think that once I even spotted them, I mean, they were available in their PDF format for free, I think, if I'm not forgetting.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I have downloaded it. It's available in Urdu and in English in PDF.
Okay. So we have time. If anybody has questions related to the passage we studied today, please raise your hands. Otherwise, we can, if Dr. Saleem is comfortable with the time, we can move on to questions.
Yes, of course we can.
Okay?
Yes.
So if there are no more questions related to the passage today, we can open the forum for general questions. Dr. Saleem, I have a question. So if I'm correct, I heard you mention earlier that Torah and Quran are the main books that were revealed by the Quran, and the Psalms and the Injil are both supplements. What does that mean?
Right. Supplement means that they don't bring any new Sharia, whereas the Quran did bring a new Sharia to the Torah. So Sharia means a set of divine laws. So the Injil is just a supplement to the divine laws, which means that what happened was that the part of the Torah which explained the hikmah, the wisdom of these divine laws, were lost. So when Jesus came, he said that I've come to complete the Torah, which means to once again fulfill what was lost or what was somehow not preserved by the Torah, which means not only the law but the wisdom of the law. So that wisdom part had gone missing, and he said that I've come to provide that. And similarly, you can see that the Psalms are basically hymns. These are songs or hymns which are sung for the oneness of God, and they express the Tawheed of God, and they don't bring any new Sharia or any new set of directives. And similar is the case with the Injil. So that is why we say that the real book is the Torah. Injil and the Psalms or the Zabur, they are just supplements to the Torah.
Okay, so if I'm correct, I've of course heard that, and I've even heard you say that Bible is actually the history of the entire.
So see, what we have today, I mean, in the form of the Old Testament and the New Testament and biblical history, that is, I mean, in one volume it is called the Holy Bible. So the word Bible is used for all what is prior to the Quran also. But another use of the word Bible is for the Injil, which means the gospel or the book that was revealed to Jesus. So that is also a usage. So the word Bible must be understood. So it is used for all the scriptures as well as for just the gospels.
Okay, so if we're referring to Injil and the Zabur, we are talking about the Psalms and the Gospel.
Yes, so Zabur is the Psalms and Injil is the Gospels.
Oh yes, okay. If anybody has any questions, this is the time to raise your hands. You can even ask general questions that you have, because we have a little bit of time left. If not, then we can end the session. Let me know at this time, either in the chat or in the open forum. So, Dr. Saleem, we don't seem to have any questions at this time. So, we can end the session then, I think.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your wisdom, and then we'll be meeting again next Sunday. Thank you, everyone.
Inshallah.